Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Health In Show, an affiliate program of Homeopathy World Community. I am your host, Debby Bruck, the founder of HWC, a professional social network for homeopaths. And we're going to be talking with our special guest, Mary Ellen Turner from Colorado, homeopath. We want to learn about plants and how they affect us and all about their nature because we are similar. And I want to introduce Mary Ellen, who is a CCHRS home of Englewood, Colorado, and she began her studies in alternative approaches to health cares in 1972. In 1987, she embarked on a lifelong study of homeopathy, and I must agree it is a lifelong pursuit of constantly learning about our world all around us and how it is part of the homeopathic world. She was blessed to have studied with Luke Klein, Jeremy Scher, Jan Scholten, and many others, and continues to be enlightened by the leading homeopaths of our day in the United States, India, Australia, and Europe. She'll tell us if she travels. And she also has her education is the Homeopathy School International Luminous Master Clinician course, the Dynamis School of Advanced Homeopathic Studies, and she received her national certification by the Council of Homeopathic Certification. She is very involved in the community, and they're calling her right now to answer questions because this is the day that you can call in to, if you're in the United States, 919-518-9773 and talk with Mary Ellen. Or if you're on Skype internationally, you can call into Computers 2K Voice. And we will put you on hold until we get your call in. What else do we want to tell you? It's going to be very exciting. We're going to be pulling up some notes from Asia Hershoff's book on muscular skeletal healing because he has done a quite dynamic approach to looking at the body and all of our sensations in a very pictorial manner. So welcome, Mary Ellen. I hope that everybody is able to hear us and get on the chat. Sign in, register with your name when you go to Nissan Communications. Oh, I want to introduce, before I say a formal hello.
Hi, Davey.
That's the guy in the back. He's echoing. He's working the studio here. And welcome to Amnon Nissan of Nissan Communications. Okay, so it looks like we're on a roll here. Mary Ellen.
Hi, Debbie.
I'm so happy to be with you today. And you're up bright and early, aren't you?
I am, but I've had my first cup of coffee, don't tell Hahnemann, and I'm ready to go.
Well, Hahnemann smoked, so there you go.
We're all human.
Okay, so folks out in the chat, bring other people in, tweet it up, put it on Facebook, and tell them they can ask their questions. This is all of, do you have a relationship with plants? We're going to find out right now. Okay, I'm waiting for you to give us the introduction to plants.
Okay, well, I started thinking about plants, and I've been treating a lot of people with plant remedies lately. That's why I thought, well, let's just talk about plants. And to start, what do we know instinctively about plants? We know that they have been used in herbology for wounds, traditionally. We know they are sensitive to environmental factors. But how does that play out in the homeopathic practice? That's what I wanted to talk about. So what would we see in a patient? We might see that they're sensitive to hot and cold, that their symptoms may come on at night when the sun goes down. They might have a sensitivity to the weather, to storms, to wind. Some plants can heal you, and some plants can harm you. Some plants, like arnica, grow in high altitude. Some are showy and colorful, some are shy and small. If anybody else has something they might consider to be a plant-like quality or a sensitivity that a plant might have, I started thinking they attract insects, both good and bad. They can also attract fungus, so they might have, we could extrapolate parasitic relationships. So this is where I started with plants. Do you have a thought on plants and sensitivity that you might consider?
Well, I do have a relationship with plants. I'm a gardener. I love to be out there in the earth. I would say that there's a relationship with, as you said, all the fungus that are, and the mycorrhizae that are in the earth, and the worms, and even the birds, and the bees. You know, there's a lot of relationships in nature with plants that add color to our lives. We think of red roses, all of the things that are emotional in nature. We reflect upon love and other kinds of emotions with plants, and how fragile they are and how tender they are, the leaves. And like morning glory this morning, I know it blooms once and then it's gone. And the cactus that opens at night one time in the year, and they are very fragrant. Ooh, and so you think about all the people who have made a career and a life of healing through aromatherapy that comes from the oils of the plant. And those oils can be toxic, like in poison ivy. People, if it's that oil is in the air, they're going to get a rash and an outbreak and an allergic reaction. And I once was pulling in the garden and unfortunately wasn't wearing gloves. And I got a very bad allergic reaction and ended up taking urtica urens, stinging nettle, because of that. And people take stinging nettle tea for their lungs. So there's a relationship with our body organs, our skin specifically, allergies that we have seasonally. So you really did mention quite a bit about the sensitivity of plants.
Yes, and what's interesting is where they grow. For instance, arnica is a high altitude plant, and it grows where someone might have an injury, a trauma, and there's the plant right there. They used to give it, dilute it and make a tea and take it internally for the trauma, or put a pack on a wound. But basically, it's fascinating to study how they grow, what they look like. Because it's a high altitude plant, and we'll get into this a little bit more, you can imagine that this remedy, as well as other remedies within that family, are sensitive to wind.
To wind?
To wind. Well, chamomilla, which is, in the same family, is very sensitive to wind. And that is in the family, but they're buffeted around. Chamomile more so because they're more straggly.
What is this family? Tell the folks out there, what is this family that we're talking about?
We're talking about the Compositae family, and it's the daisy family. So you look at a picture of arnica and it looks like a daisy-like, I should say. And chamomile, they're much more fragile looking than the sturdy, strong daisy. So they're going to be more sensitive. You tend to look at the strength of what you see, the boldness of the plant, to get an understanding of the character of the plant.
And as people are listening, maybe you are reflecting on your own relationship with plants. And when you think of the daisy, what do you think of? And let us know. I mean, put a comment there, give us feedback, let us know you're listening. And if you have a story, you can call into 919-518-9773 in the United States and Computers 2K Voice on Skype. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, we have probably so many stories throughout our life of a relationship with plants. I mean, I don't know what plant it is, but as a child, there was a long stem and a little piece at the top, and I'd loop it off and go flip them. I don't know. Do you ever do that? We used to shoot them.
As a kid, I used to blow the dandelions when they would go into their feathery season, I guess you might say.
When they were had their seeds ready to blow in the wind. Okay, so I can see the wind component. It needs the wind actually to pollinate.
Absolutely, but some, depending on their plant structure, are more sensitive to it. They're not short and stout and sturdy. They might be long and spindly like a chamomile.
So the chamomile is long and spindly. And is this like a weed? Is what we consider it a weed, or is it something that people are actually growing? Like German chamomile, I think of tea for Peter Rabbit and his tummy.
It is weedish, and it tends to grow of itself along pathways. But they're tall. They're not as, if you think of the daisy, they're just kind of upright and compact. But the chamomile, as it grows, it's taller and more fragile. It's not so hardy and sturdy. There are lots of little spindly branches to it. And it tends to come back in on itself and fall around the stalk as a self-protection, which we'll get into. Compositae on an emotional level are very self-protective, but chamomile most so. And senna, of course, but we won't go into depth with senna today.
Okay. So are we going to concentrate on this Asteraceae plant family, and do they mostly look like these little white petals with a yellow center?
For the most part, there are different, there are several varieties, but they have the center with the petals around them in different sizes and shapes.
And the center, is that compositae because each one of those is like a flower inside?
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Bruck, if you have anything to say, give us a call. Tell us about the plant botany.
You mentioned earlier that Asa Hershoff's book, which is a wonderful book on the musculoskeletal system, has in it a chart called Traumatic Man. You can Google it and take a look at it yourself, but
I have the picture of it on Homeopathy World Community, and it's on the page. If you just go to the front page in the banner, you will see it. So what he's done, can you see that? Basically, he's taken the human body and pointed to you to show you the different remedies and the different types of injury. So you want to explain that a little bit further?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say that there are only, of this chart, there are only 2 remedies that are not plant remedies. Everything else is a plant. Now, arnica, which is the signature compositae remedy, is for blunt trauma. It's for shock. It's the first remedy you give, say, after a car accident. Out here in Colorado, it's the first remedy to consider after your first day skiing, when you come back and you can barely move. A dose of arnica, about 20 minutes later, you're good to go. It is good in first remedy after a car accident, closed head injury. If you want, we could just kind of quickly go around the picture here and talk about different emergency cases for different remedies.
Well, I was interested to learn about the plant family and how the relationships that it has in the family. You know, you were mentioning that to me, how important it was that it has. Did you want to just go through the different ones so that people got an idea of the variety, or did you want to stick with Asteraceae and the 3 remedies, arnica?
Well, we could stick with the Asteraceae.
Okay.
Yeah. So we know that plants are sensitive, and we know that arnica is the signature of the Asteraceae or Compositae family. But how do they present themselves to a homeopath? What are the themes? Now, because it's a plant remedy, and as I mentioned before, we are likely to hear stories about relationships. Plants are categorized as families, and you're going to hear a lot about their family life.
Mm-hmm.
With the Compositae, they are the tough guys. They've been through a lot in life. They have
bruises, I think.
They have bruises both emotionally and physically. Maybe they don't complain about the bruise on the knee, but they'll complain about the emotional bruise.
Okay, so they're really in touch with their emotions. It's on the surface rather than being tough and you just don't even hear about it. You basically, will they complain a lot, or will they...
Some will complain. Now, of course, Cinna and chamomile will complain a lot. But arnica is the tough guy. And if we were to transpose onto the entertainment field, the persona in the movies that we would see as an arnica type, interestingly, would be Clint Eastwood, who just got a lot of national attention at the Republican convention.
Okay, and what do you say? Why do you say that? What is it about Clint Eastwood that, even though he seems like a pretty solid, hardy, strong man, would require or would reflect upon the arnica?
Well, he is, in his persona, he's the tough guy.
Yeah.
He's conservative. He knows right from wrong. And he protects others less fortunate than he. The vulnerable. He's always saving the widowed mother or something.
So it's a feeling that you get that they're standing up against the odds. They're supporting somebody else. They're protecting somebody else. Are they protecting themselves as well?
That might be one of the lessons that the family of remedies needs to learn, as I see in some of the cases I'll talk about today. Classically, let's say at a car accident, the arnica person is going to say, "I'm fine, go help them."
Okay.
And then they'll collapse and go into a coma or whatever. they go into shock. Partly it's shock that they're not even feeling. They're a little bit disconnected from the experience of the hurt. And they're quite noble, as many flowers are. Their dignity is very important to them.
In what respect do we see that how would we see that their dignity is so important to them? Besides, it sounds like they're heroes.
They are heroes. They are the father, the noble hero. Arnica is
going out into war. They would need that for getting trauma or injury.
Absolutely, because they've got to keep going.
But what's this part about dignity? I don't follow that completely.
Because they are so susceptible to emotional slight or injury.
Okay.
As a lot of plants are. You think of Staphylos aureus, who are very incensed with rude people. Flowers are like that. They have a dignity, a stature. You'll see it in a lot of different plants.
They could be offended easily, maybe?
Very offended easily. And as I say, they won't hurt. They won't talk about the injury, the physical injury, as much as they would the emotional injury. I mean, some would, but there's an emotional component that is far more.
Can you tell it? Can you tell it in the sound of their voice? Is there something? I mean, how would we separate this from other kinds of remedies that feel dignified or feel hurt, or is it just mostly all plants?
Well, I would say mostly plants, although there are others that have that dignity too. The interesting thing with plants is they have a split or an opposite,
Okay.
a polarity, where you will see, say, the tough guy. But what is endearing, if we're going to continue with the Clint Eastwood metaphor?
I don't know. Does he have a soft side to him?
Well, we women love it when we see a woman taking care of this wounded warrior in its movies.
Okay.
You know, I think there was one with Shirley MacLaine where she's a nun and they're out in the middle fighting the bad guys, and he's teaching her how to use a gun, and he's wounded as the wounded hero, and she ends up learning how to use the gun and taking care of him, and he's not going to complain about his injury, but she's going to, they don't want somebody fussing over them. They want an ally. They want somebody to stand beside them. And this is quite honorable in our, Hollywood persona picture of things. This is, it's subtle, but this is why women like these tough guy Clint Eastwood.
But I'm afraid they could get hurt very easily.
They could, but as you see, he might be protecting the woman, but he teaches the woman how to stand beside him. He doesn't want a mother fussing over him. That would deplete his potency. But he wants a woman to stand beside him, and that's why, men like his movies, but women will watch with the men because of this aspect as well.
Well, we know for sure that a keynote of arnica does not want to be touched. That if you have a black and blue, you know how sore that feels, and you don't want anybody to get near it to touch it.
Yes.
And
they don't like to be approached. They don't want to be interfered with. That's why they're likely to say, no, I'm fine. I can handle it myself. Partly, they may have a little distrust of your competency, but also they have a whole inner life underneath this tough guy.
Uh-huh.
And often because they've had to do battle, shall we say, inside, if they confide in you, they will tell you that they're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
They have anticipation anxiety?
They have anticipatory anxiety, and some, depending on the miasmatic quality of the case, may be waiting for another 9/11, another crisis, another, oh my gosh, something is going to happen to my family, the people I love, and it could be any day now. Now that's their anticipatory anxiety. They have a fear of falling, which could be related to their sense of dignity. They don't want a loss of dignity.
Mm-hmm.
They're upright. They,
so you could see it in their posture as well?
Not in all. Some could be, their posture they would like, if you look as we...
What is that?
Hold on to the Clint Eastwood thing. He's very upright. His posture is perfect.
Okay.
But,
yeah, we have in the chat, make my day, and also what about tinctures and balms and preparations homeopathically, as opposed to, you said in the olden days they would give teas, and you can still buy it in the section of the store that's in the grocery store. I see little packets of arnica and other kinds of plants
and trameal
from South America.
Yeah, and trameal, the cream to put on.
Is it a control freak or not? Or do they blow with the wind like pulsatilla? Are they easygoing? Are they flexible, or do they?
They're basically quite conservative. Now, if you go to chamomile, well, let me first start. Well, I'll finish up with arnica.
Okay.
Their internal fears are that something awful is impending. Something, I will fall, I will lose my strength. That's partly why they don't want to say, ouch, help me, is that they feel that if they talk about it or complain about it, this of course is arnica, it will weaken them and their strength and dignity, and they have a fear that their legs are going to be knocked out from under them. So they like to kind of
they don't want to talk, they don't want to expose themselves, they don't want to be vulnerable to whatever environmental pressures might be on them, so they just don't keep it to themselves. Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Okay.
According to some teachers, they'll describe the arnica as the warrior, the hero, the father function. And they will say they're well when they're not, just because they don't want to talk about it.
Interesting.
Because it will weaken them in some way. If everybody thinks they can't handle this tough guy persona that they're putting forth.
Well, I'm looking forward to the other remedies quickly, and then the cases, because we have about 30 minutes left.
Okay. Let me just run through some of the things. It'll take about 5 minutes that physically arnica is good for. It's an anticoagulant. It's for blunt trauma, concussions, not open head wounds, but concussions, head injury with hematoma, painless abscesses. Now that's very unusual, and that's characteristic of the family of Compositae. Painlessness. They can have excruciating pain, alternating with numbness, or painlessness of remedies. They could get deafness from a head injury and stupor after a head injury.
This is a major remedy for concussion.
Yes. On the sensation level, and I'm talking about they specifically arnica, but other remedies within the family, the bed feels too hard or the pillow feels like there are rocks in it. They're very, very sensitive. They just can't get comfortable.
Would that mean the Princess and the Pea, she needed something from the Compositae family?
It could be. It could be. Let me see. They're waiting for the other shoe. Yeah, it's often given for the shock of something that is, they say in the literature, not expected, although it is the first remedy to consider in a car accident, for the shock of the car accident. So you can, or let's say somebody falls and breaks a wrist. The shock of it.
So now how often would you have to give this? And I mean, most people wouldn't carry around a high potency, even though we did have somebody tell me that they always had in their pocket a 10M, and they would give it on any occasion when somebody had an injury. Elaine Lewis told me that in a couple shows back. But we have muscle strain and sore back and other kinds of daily injuries besides, I'm thinking of the athlete. And you think of an athlete as being a warrior in going into battle against the opponent. And so that picture that you described really does fit quite well for people who are in construction or using their physical body all the time and could get a strain.
Yes. I remember many years ago helping my husband put in a garage. We were building a garage. And we had plans for the evening, and I was taking the gravel in the wheelbarrow and wheeling it into the space. And I was very enthusiastic because this was a project that I'd been wanting to get going for a while. But in that enthusiasm, I overdid it. And when we were done, I went and laid down and thought, well, I cannot go out tonight. I can barely move. And I took an arnica. At that time, I probably just had a 30C. And in 20 minutes, I was fine.
So your over-the-counter remedy, and I want to inform the listeners that this is just a discussion, and if you do have a serious condition and you need to see your healthcare provider, but we do have these are over-the-counter remedies. You can find them in your health food store, usually in a 6C or a 30C potency strength. So it helped you. It helped you, and you just took it one time. I mean, sometimes we have to repeat
it was so long ago. I may have taken 2 doses. Now, but I would say in 20 minutes, I thought, oh, I'm back to life. This is also, say, after your first ski trip of the season where you come back all bruised and sore and you can barely move.
So Charlie horse, I would say, like if you're a runner and you overdo your muscles, would that be the remedy for you, arnica, or would you think more of Rhus toxicodrin?
Well, I think if you've overextended a workout, the first thing I would consider is arnica. Then depending on, and similar to Rhus tox, they are worse first movement, better subsequent movement. So there are some similarities to other plants, as you say, to the Compositae and, or arnica and Rhus tox. As I say with arnica, their fear is that they are, they are the father, the hero, and their fear of falling or loss of dignity, that their legs will be knocked out from under them, that their legs are weak and can't hold them upright, is a big concern. And, their dignity is everything.
I never think of it that way. I just think of it on a physical plane and, maybe an emotional hurt, but I never thought of the word dignity as part of the remedy. But it's so I'm really learning a lot from that.
Yes. Well, we can see it in other remedies too. If you want, we can go to Bellis perennis next, which is the daisy. And they have been known to grow on battlefields after a war. Now, interestingly, also, they have dreams of difficult journeys. So you're going to hear probably with the Bellis that they have had a difficult childhood.
Difficult what?
Difficult childhood.
Difficult
They've been
childhood.
through a lot.
Okay.
Maybe even a family history where, whether they describe it, you could interpret it as kind of a war zone. Very chaotic. It's in the Cancer miasm, so it's very chaotic, maybe even described as a battlefield, home life, or some situation. Maybe it's a bad marriage. You'll hear stories of very difficult living situations where they would do their best to bring a calm to a chaotic environment. And they're the daisy. They're basically very sunny and happy, and they make friends with everybody. If they go to the store, the person behind the counter is going to tell them their life story. They're that person that just lights up the room when they come in.
I never heard any of this before. This is all new to me. I always think of Bellis perennis as just like after a traumatic labor and sore in the abdomen and in the womb, and that is the most recognized time that I would think of using Bellis perennis, or as a follow-up when the arnica was not working.
True, but there is a psychological component to all of our remedies. And this is what has interested me in my studies. So, this is what I enjoy going a little deeper into the remedy picture to find out, well, okay, who is this person and what drives them and why are, what is the psychological component to the remedy? That interests me, so that's where I focus my studies.
Well, it sounds like these plant remedies that look so tender and they bring joy into our lives, and they do look like the picture of the sun. You said, they walk into. They're also, you think of a lion's mane, that you often see a picture of a cartoon with the face in the center and the lion's mane. That's their little petals all around them. That would be king of the jungle. They would be strong, and yet they can have this weak side that you said their legs could fall from under them. Well, if you think about an animal coming over and biting, chewing on their stem, and they would get the tops chewed off by grazing animals or stepped on when you're walking along the path, and there's many opportunities for these little fragile plants to be injured in just their normal life cycle.
If you think about it in that way, they could be eaten alive by squirrels or whatnot, animals eaten alive, crushed. You get a sense of what could the experience of that plant be, and we see it reflected in our patients. So I find that very interesting.
With so many plants in this family, it seems like it would be very difficult to choose. I don't know whether there's 2,000 in the Asteraceae, the Compositae. There's so many. How do we narrow it down? I mean, we're just talking about the king of the plants, the arnica, and the queen, Bellis, and calendula, things like that are all in the family.
Chamomile, the child, the screaming child.
The screaming child from teeth coming in, dentition, ear pain. All of these plants are so sensitive and can heal so well and rapidly from these kinds of injuries, extreme pain.
Yes. Well, for the practicing homeopath, they know to look at miasms. That will give them a clue. We're trained to listen to the whispers and let the person tell us what their remedy is. They will speak the remedy. But for those that are not familiar or haven't studied a great deal, I can mention some of the physical injuries we would treat with Bellis. And again, the last one would be chamomile. To give you an idea of the main significance for treating specifics, and then a little taste of what's going inside them. What is the state they're in that would, why would someone who needs Bellis be so affected by certain things? It's because they have a perception, or as we homeopaths might say, a delusion, a false to fact belief that animates them. And with the remedy, that false perception is also addressed.
Okay, so we look at dreams and fears, because you did mention the kind of a dream that we would be able to investigate.
Yes, I have a great one with the chamomile, dream change. But with Bellis, they are good, as you said, second prescription from arnica. They have sprains, bruises, lacerations, incisions, painless abscesses again.
Painless, did you say? Painless?
Painless.
Painless.
Think of the tough guy that can take anything on.
Okay.
That's this family. They're the tough guy. And so, you think, how did you get through this, whatever it is? And they might say, well, I did, I may have had abscess, but I didn't have the pain.
I always think of opium.
Chamomile is the opium of homeopathic remedies. Chamomile.
Marvelous.
So says Fatak.
Which one is that one?
Phatak, Fatak, who has a Materia Medica in the journals of homeopathic.
Okay.
He calls chamomilla the opium of homeopathy because they are in such excruciating pain.
Well, you have to kind of blank it out, because if you're in shock, your body can't take it. The only way to get through such a horrible trauma, a blunt trauma, whatever it might be, you have to go into a state of painlessness in order to live through it, or you probably go into you'd faint or something from the pain.
Yes.
So why don't we have a few minutes? Why don't you talk about a case? And this has been quite fascinating, and I know there's a lot more material.
Okay. I'm treating a woman at the moment with Bellis who had a very difficult childhood. And it was a war zone in her home. And she got in trouble during her younger years, went to prison, had children, and gave them up for adoption. I mean, really, really hard life. One of the things that threw me off until I understood this group of remedies, while she was very, very sensitive when she was in the office. She would complain. She's an executive chef and works for a family, very wealthy family, who are getting a divorce, and they're splitting up, and they depend on her for everything. She is there at a moment's call. Now, Bellis is in the Cancer miasm. Cancer miasm is about perfection. They need to be perfect. They need to be unassailable and indispensable. And that's who she was for everybody in her life. With Bellis, they want to please. So they're not going to complain because somebody's got it much harder than they. They might be wheeled into the emergency room for birth delivery, but they'll laugh. They'll make a joke of their pain rather than inconvenience anybody. They might make a joke about, does anybody have any morphine, but they're not going to boo-hoo their fate. Bellis, what it's mainly known for is breast cancer after an injury, after a contusion. Conium has also been given for that, but that is its signature thing. They also tend to get groin pains during pregnancy, or if the fetus is moving too violently, that they are deeply affected by that. On the polarity section, they tend to be exhausted, but need to move. They tend to be lively. People see them as very lively, but when nobody's around, they're very apathetic. Or they might come to a homeopath and not complain about anything except that their energy is low. And they used to like to get together with people, but now they're feeling a little agoraphobic. If you see those polarities, you think first off plant, and you might think Bellis, depending on the specifics. Internally, the state of mind of Bellis is that of a child left to defend themselves. They feel either they literally have been hit and beaten, or the insult as if they had been hit or beaten. That felt like a punch to the stomach. That felt as though they had slapped me across the face. Those are the words, that's the sensation you're going to have with a Bellis patient. Above all, they must control that pain or that anger or that insult. They must not speak out about it, especially if they're living in a situation where they've been hit or insulted. And the only way to manage living with someone who insults or demeans or hurts is to please them, to be indispensable. If they are pleasing, they will get through the trauma. The biggest hurt they have is being excluded, feeling like after all I've done for you, you've forgotten me. As with all composite families, they're the tough guy, and they're not going to complain whether they've been insulted or whether, if they've been insulted, they're probably going to feel shock. If they have an injury, it's more of a shock. They're not the big complainers. Even though they make friends with everybody, they are the life of the party. They're the sun that lights up a party. Everybody wants them to come to their party. By themselves, at home, they can go into depressions and feel like nobody loves them, that they are absolutely friendless, and they may feel disconnected. Let's move quickly. I think we only have about 10 minutes. So I'm going to move right over to chamomile unless you have a question on Bellis.
I was listening and learning.
Okay.
It was really fascinating because as you speak, for me as a homeopath, I think of many other remedies that have similar sensations, feelings, delusions, you know, want to please, all of these things, but to put it together and recognize this specific remedy for it, I think that you do have to be very well trained to be able to put that picture together, because it could be so many remedies.
It could be so many remedies. And
Yeah.
what makes this person tick? Now, moving on to chamomile.
I mean, I think about the Lily family for being excluded and being pushed out. And did they want to please as much as the Bellis perennis?
Well, the Liliaceae family, they have a split too. As you know, with Liliaceae, they have.
It's a bulb, so it feels pushed, and feels totally excluded from the group.
Yes, and as with many plants, they have a split. With the Liliaceae, it's about, you know, looking a particular way and internally having a different feeling.
Okay.
And
so it's almost like they're wearing a mask, that you really, they're the life of the party, but inside they're feeling hurt and excluded and bruised and sore and all of these things, but they don't let anybody onto it.
Well, think of the comedian who makes everybody laugh.
Yeah.
And they are, you know, they feel good. They feel like they're in their element when they're making everybody laugh. They're feeling connected.
I see.
But they go home, and you would never suspect that they had this all very different inner life going on. Maybe they don't have a strong connection to their family, and they make family with strangers.
Good point. Very good point. And you mentioned earlier about going into the grocery store or wherever and becoming so friendly with strangers.
Everybody welcomes them when they come into the store. It's like, hey, how are you? Good to see you. Like people are happy to see them. They are a bright light that comes into the room.
They gather the sunshine into the life of the plant. Okay, so we only have a couple minutes.
Okay. Also, with Bellas, most of the complaints are at night.
Okay.
Now, there's a day-night component, as there is in Solanaceae, where there's a day-night component. We won't get into that. But with all these, there's a day-night issue, and usually worse at night. As with Arnica, worse at night in bed. The bed's too hard.
Does the plant itself, the leaves close up at night and then open in the day? I'm trying to think of
No,
my...
No, I don't think so, although there's somebody that knows more, they can correct me in the chat. But there is, they're dependent on the sunlight and affected by very affected by
about like
damp
rain?
weather.
Damp weather.
Damp weather, as will be the case with chamomile. Chamomile, God bless them, they are going to be the child in the family that says no. They're they are ready to put their will out into the world. You think of a child, maybe 2 years old, maybe earlier, well, actually probably a year old to 2 years old, getting their teeth. It's a big teething remedy. It's the time of life where the will comes into the body, and they are taking a stand. Maybe a little too vehemently, but it is in proportion with their exquisite sensitiveness that they must demand that they be paid attention to. Now, how does that manifest? I was thinking about the rubric desires to be carried. Maybe the child is very capricious. They demand something. You give it to them. They'll throw it on the floor. You finally think, okay, I'll pick you up and carry you. And unlike pulsatilla, where you naturally gravitate to them to pick them up and carry them, pulsatilla, if you pick them up, they might kick you. They're quite furious, little tempest in a teapot. It is the typhoid miasm. They are in a crisis. Everything is a crisis. Or they might, in their imagination, as an adult, you might see them with anticipatory anxiety about a crisis, another 9/11, something, or maybe there'll be a little tempest in a teapot, or a tea party teapot that gets very upset about things. They're just in a whole to-do.
So they're very sensitive. They'll be they're like a trigger. Any little thing will set them off.
Yes, they're vehement. They are vehement.
And we particularly know about their cry. It's not a pleasant cry. It's something that is very irritating. So
yes,
you want them to be quiet. Can I ask you, when you pick them up, do they settle down and are they soothed?
Eventually, because they like to be carried.
Do they like to be rocked also? Is this a remedy
They like rides in the car. If you think of a child who has colic or is teething, they like vigorous movement, or they'll want to. When my son had colic as a young baby, he settled down as soon as we went over railroad tracks. I would pop him in the car, and we would go over the railroad tracks back and forth on this road, and it would settle him right down. But they like to be carried. They might call the practitioner. We think of our Senecum patients calling the homeopath a lot. The chamomile patient will talk a lot. They need to be carried. Now, you can't carry an adult, but how is it seen in a patient as an adult? Now, they're capricious, they have fear of wind, and they can get symptoms from wind, earache or stuffed up ear. What they have inside that makes them so intense is that it's as if they are a child who doesn't have anybody. They feel injured, they feel threatened, they have no one, and thus they want nothing and everything and nothing. They are in a state of complete crisis internally.
They don't know what they want. They ask for something, they throw it away. They won't accept any kind of soothing, and yet you say if you pick them up, they will be. So there's this polarity of you're able to soothe them with some forceful, vigorous rocking or movement, or they will not be settled down by anything because the pain to them is so great. Oh, it's already our hour is up. I have really learned a lot of new things about this plant family, the sensitivities, the polarities, the opposites, how they are emotionally, and how they gather their energy from the sun and can express that in a group of other people. Their hero analogy and all the different things about these plants. You could probably study for a whole lifetime about the Compositae family.
It's a fascinating, and the first emergency remedies are in the Compositae family, so it's very useful.
Right. So if you are out there and you feel injured, you have a wound that's not healing, you had a difficult childhood, these plants may help you in the homeopathic potentized form, and find out from somebody who knows, because these pictures can get complicated, but in an emergency, an acute situation, have a remedy kit on hand. As a matter of fact, on Homeopathy World Community, Miranda Castro has provided a discount code, so you can go and check that out and visit her website for remedies, either singles or kits, or creams. We've got the scar cream, we've got joint cream, all different kinds of things like that that can help you. And we're going to be continuing our broadcasting for Homeopathy World Community with Dr. Adil Qasim of New Delhi on Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. We love to talk to him and learn about our heart health, and He answers questions from all around the world there. On Thursday at noon, we have Alan Phillips, Vaccinations and Your Rights in the United States. So if you want to be a warrior and stand up for your rights, listen to the show. We have everything about vaccines and current events. I appreciate everybody who's out there. Amnon, I hope it's been interesting today.
It was, but I have one question.
Yes.
How do people get a hold of you if they want your services?
You can contact me at homeopathyworldcommunity@gmail.com via email. You can go onto the website Homeopathy World Community or onto Facebook, Homeopathy World Community. That's it. I'm sure if you just Google my name, you're going to find a way to get to me. And if you're interested in being a guest on the show, if you have something to say, please let us know. I'm sure that you've had a life experience that other people want to learn from you, how you got through something difficult, whether it was an emotional, a physical, a mental problem, and you found relief through homeopathy. We would love to hear from you. And we're going to continue. Let's see. Next up is going to be a show. Let me see. I don't have it right in front of me. But go on Homeopathy World Community. I have the Health In group with the listing of all of the archives. We've been running the show for 4 months, at least. At least 4 months. That's a lot of shows. And we appreciate all those who have been guests, who have been followers and come on the chat, contributed your thoughts, your ideas, have shared on Facebook and all the other social networks. That's what grows our community. That's what creates waves of awareness to get the word out that homeopathy is a very viable healing way to get relief and alleviate symptoms and also continue on with your life smiling without having to take that Bellus perennis. Maybe you need a dose. So we're sending love, waves of love out to you to heal and have a great Labor Day today. I think we're ending.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays 9 a.m. to noon. Health In with Debby Bruck, Mondays 11 a.m. to noon. The Scope of Things with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays 8 to 9 p.m. Body Talk with Cindy Prince, first Tuesdays 8 to 9 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays 8 to 9 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by thatvidblasterguy.com, carolinaapparel.com, and deltaforce.net.